What about socialization and friends and activities? These are all of the things that new moms are worried about their kids missing out on if they homeschool, and we are going to be getting into all of that today. It is time for some girl talk. But first, welcome back. If you're new here, hello, my name is Sheree Lanette. I am a former teacher turned homeschool mom. I've been homeschooling my kiddos for 8 years now, and I help moms get started on their homeschooling journeys, especially here in Texas. So if you are new to homeschooling, you can grab my free homeschool starter kit in my description. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I post Girl Talk episodes every week on here, as well as weekly vlogs of me and my kiddos just doing life. Let's talk about FOMO. One of the biggest things that we are afraid of, myself included, is that once we start homeschooling our kids, that they are going to be missing out and that they're going to actually feel like they're missing out on doing experiences that kids are doing in traditional schooling. And one of the first things that we all know, we can say it together, that everybody brings up and everybody's worried about is socialization. Socialization with homeschooling, I still don't understand how in 2025 has such a stigma or why people ask about it so much. But it's people's number one concern and question, which makes new homeschool moms worry about it as well. Here's the thing about socialization. For one, homeschool kids are actually socialized better in a lot of circumstances just because they are exposed to so many more people compared to being in a classroom. And they're not just sitting in a classroom with people of their age group. There's no other place in life where you're going to just go and only be around people your age. Think of all the jobs you've had. You've probably had older people, younger people. You have to learn how to work with and communicate with everybody. And I usually laugh when parents are always like, well, school's such a great place for kids to socialize. No, it's not. School is a great place to meet other kids and meet friends. It is, but you really don't have a whole lot of time to socialize, especially the older you get. Your lunch period's probably 20 to 30 minutes long. You have about 5 minutes in between classes. So it's a great place to meet friends. But even when I was in high school, most of my friendships came from my extracurricular activities that I did in school. So track was where I met most of my friends, or choir. We're doing activities together. We're traveling together. So this is where I formed my deep friendships, extracurricular activities. And you can do extracurricular activities while you're homeschooling. I can't tell you as a teacher how many times I was telling my students, you're not here to socialize, because they're not. They were there to learn math. We didn't have time for them to be over there chit-chatting and being friends. We had to get this work done. So school in itself has this amazing concept. Like, it's a great place for kids to build friendships. It's a great place for kids to meet each other. But kids can meet in other places too. So how do you socialize homeschool kids? How can they meet other kids? Well, there's a few different ways. There's co-ops, which is basically a group of homeschool families coming together. They're run many different ways. So some of them is just they come and they meet every week and they kind of just hang out and do activities together. Some of them are very structured, where maybe the parents are taking turns teaching a unit or a theme or a lesson, and the kids are actually doing activities and learning together. There's a whole bunch of different ones. So this is a great place to meet like-minded families and just get your kids around other homeschool families. Other thing is homeschool activities. So if you go on your local Facebook group, you probably find your local homeschool page, or just homeschool page is different. We have a million different Facebook pages here where I live. But when I go on there, it shows me oh, who's doing homeschool orchestra? Who's doing homeschool choir? Oh, they're doing homeschool soccer. So many moms are coming together and putting on events and different things for their kids, and a lot of businesses too. My daughter was in homeschool orchestra that was run at our local music studio. And so there's all different types of activities where I feel like my kids are still getting extracurriculars. These were a great chance for them to be around other homeschool kids, even though they weren't in the traditional school environment. Let's say you can't find a co-op and you can't find a local homeschool organization like orchestra or whatever. you can still put your kids in extracurricular activities. So kids who go to traditional school, they go to school during the day, and then after school or the evenings, they have their sports and all of the other things. Homeschool kids can do those things too. And this is a great place to meet friends. So your child does not only have to be friends with kids who are homeschooled. They can go to be friends with kids who are in traditional schooling as well. So there's so many ways where your child is able to connect with other children and build friendships with other children, where it doesn't have to be in the school environment where you feel like, oh my gosh, they're missing out. With that being said, I feel like this is a strong note that I need to put in here, because I see a lot of moms struggle with this. I've even struggled with this a little bit. Just because you put your kids in certain activities or in certain situations doesn't mean that they're gonna like click and find friends right away, or they may struggle developing friendships. And I know for me, when I was putting my kids in these activities and I was like, oh my gosh, they're not like fostering long-term friendships, there you do feel this extra pressure because, you know, society, it's all out there like, where's their friends? See? But I realized that I was putting this extra pressure on myself and wanting this so bad because of what everybody thinks and the stigma around homeschooling. But in life, sometimes it takes kids a while to find their people. It's no different than adults. So even when I was in school, I moved a lot. I was an Army brat. And when I moved, there was a lot of times I did not have friends. I was having lunch by myself, sometimes for months. And I would come home and I'd tell my mom, like, I haven't made any friends today. And eventually I did. I did sports, like I told you, and I did choir, I did activities, and I found my people. But it did take some time. And that's okay in homeschool too. You might try different activities and you might try things, but it might take some time for your kids to find their people. So don't let the outside noise and that pressure of, because they're homeschooling, you need to prove they have friends now. You need to prove that they're okay now. I have nieces who are in traditional schooling, and there's been periods of time where they struggled with friendships and they were having a hard time making friends. And I think that was the wake up call for me when I saw them. I was like, you know, this is a part of childhood. You know, you go through things, have to find your people. It's not always easy, but because my kids are homeschooled, I felt like it was such a huge deal. But then I see my niece going through it and I'm like, oh, she'll find her people. It just takes time. And I had like such a grace and a calmness about it, when it should have been the same for my own. If you are feeling a little stressed or overwhelmed because your child hasn't found those friendships yet, as long as they're going out there and they're trying different things and they're still finding their way, it's okay. The only time it's an issue is if you're just locking your kids up in the house all day. You're never letting them get outside. You're never letting them be around people. And I have yet to meet a homeschool mom who does that, because the ones who are actually worried about their kids are okay are doing the most to make sure their kids are okay. So now that we know socialization, our baby's going to be okay. They're going to be socialized with all ages, which is amazing. The next thing is like, okay, but what about like events and activities? And again, this is when I go back to the homeschool Facebook groups and things like that, just actively seeking. Now, the bigger city you're in, the better. I don't live in that big of a city. I live in a smaller town. We have a good size homeschool community, but we have a really small town. Like, we got one Target, we got one mall, and my kids just realized what an escalator is. We went to a bigger mall. So we are in a small town. I know if I can find activities, y'all can find activities. But there's two ways to go about this. So for one, you can always search. So for example, I went in our Facebook group the other day because I was like, what are we doing for Valentine's Day? And then I saw there's like a Valentine's homeschool exchange thing. So we're going to that and we're going to go meet up with some homeschool kids and we're going to exchange Valentine cards and just finding activities and things like that to do. But I'm also very proactive. I knew that once my kids were getting older, I don't want them to miss out on, like, if they want to go to prom or having a graduation ceremony. Like, my kids are going to have all that. And if I have to be the person that creates that and orchestrates that for them myself, then I will. Now, locally here, I know we do have like graduation ceremonies and prom ceremonies, but by the time my kids are of that age, I'll decide, like, are we going to join that or am I going to create my own? But the only thing that will stop your kids from experiencing events and activities is you. You find them for them or you create them for them. One thing y'all will always hear me say is if we want something, we figure out a way to get it. And if this is something that you want your kids to have and you're worried about them missing out, then we figure it out. That's what we do. But what about like the fun activities they do at school? You know, like the field trips or the field days or things like that. Again, you can go on Facebook groups and see if anybody's planning like group field trips or things like that. But for me and my little family, I just plan stuff for us all the time. So even starting when they were younger, I knew I wanted them to feel like school and learning is fun. I wanted them to feel like it was an experience. So I just made fun days. We, of course, have pajama day because it's homeschool. You wear pajamas most days. Getting dressed is more of a holiday than wearing pajamas here. But we had Disney Day. We had Western Day. We did a lot of the things that we used to do in my elementary school that I loved. We had at my school, we had a lot of activities. We go on field trips every month. So I just always try to like incorporate things that make it fun, especially when they're little. When they're little, they get excited over everything. My kids are like middle school age now. So they're just like, Mom, chill. Like, we're too old for all that. We're in a whole new world now. But when they're little, it's so easy to get them like excited about a whole bunch of stuff. At the beginning of every school year, I sit down with my kiddos and I'm like, hey, what do we want to learn about this year? What are some things y'all want to do this year? Getting them actively involved and excited about anything you guys are working on or doing, it makes a world of difference because they're not going to feel like they're missing out on what's going on over there because of what's happening here is filling their cup. Like you're doing things they're engaged in, you're doing things that are fun for them, and they get to be included in the process too. Just remember, when it comes to FOMO, your kids missing out, you don't have to worry about that. You literally get to create the experience that you want for them. And if there's not an experience out there that you can find for them, then go out there and make it. The world is yours. It's for you and your kids to create and for it to be whatever you want. But don't get stuck in that mentality of, oh my gosh, my kids are going to miss out if I homeschool them. That's a choice that you're making because they don't have to miss out on anything. All right, y'all, I feel like today's girl talk was like short and sweet, but I hope it helped. And as always, drop a comment if there's anything else that you guys want me to talk about or cover for homeschooling. And make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss next week's Girl Talk episode or our weekly vlog, which I'll be releasing this Saturday. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week on another episode of Girl Talk.